Hello and welcome. I'm Jacqueline Whitmore, and this is Ask the Etiquette Expert. Thank you so much for joining me. I do this new series every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and it is the second day of spring. That's why I'm wearing my spring colors. This is my favorite color, pink. And it's a nice cozy sweater. It was kind of chilly this morning when I woke up, but now it's going to be about 77, 78 degrees here in Florida. I live just outside of Orlando in a little town called Mount Dora, and it's a beautiful day. So, for those of you who are just joining me for the first time, welcome. For those of you who are returning, welcome. I am going to be concentrating on some party questions today. And this first question comes from a woman by the name of Kendra. And I was on the radio with Kendra this morning. She is a producer and a co host of Magic 106.7 in Boston, Massachusetts. And they were doing a very short segment this morning on when is it too late to leave a party? Because apparently Kendra likes to stay and chit chat and have drinks and be among friends for as long as possible. So this was the big debate this morning, and so they called me about 7:30 and asked my opinion. And my opinion on this is when is the party over? Usually when the liquor is gone. No, no, but seriously, the party is over usually when everyone starts to leave or when you see the host cleaning up. And unless you're helping the host clean up, you probably should be leaving with the rest of the guests. So I've had a lot of parties. I've hosted a lot of parties. I've attended a lot of parties. And I will tell you that one little trick that some people use is the hosts will gradually and graciously stand by the door. And that's a silent signal to the guests that the party's over. Another trick is they'll start closing down the bar. And when people don't have anything more to drink, usually they get bored and they get ready to leave. Or, like I said before, if you see the host starting to clean up and the food is going back to the kitchen, the bar is closing down, the lights are getting lower, the music is off, it means the party is over and you should go home. No need to linger and be there till all hours. Now, on some invitations, a host will stress the time of the party. Let's say 7 to 10 or 7 to 9. So guests know that by 8:45, 9:45, the party is winding down. But as we know now, we are living in a more casual environment. Um, and people aren't sending out invitations anymore. So you just have to use your best judgment. And by the way, if you have just joined me, welcome. I'm Jacqueline Whitmore. I would love to know you are here with me. So let's see if we have uh, some some friends in the audience. I see we have a few people starting to trickle in. And as I said, this is Ask the Etiquette Expert. This is your chance to ask me anything. So if you have a question for me, you can write to me via email. My email is info@etiquetteexpert.com. You can send it to me in a DM on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter or all of the above. And I also have a newsletter, a free newsletter where you can send me questions as well. So thank you, Kendra, for that question about when should you leave the party. Another thing that the host asked me this morning on the radio show, is it necessary to bring anything to the party when you ask the host, can I bring something? And the host says, no, just bring yourself. Everything else is taken care of. In that case, you don't have to bring any kind of covered dish, unless, of course, you might be on a special diet, or let's say you're practicing being vegan, or you're eating, maybe you're just what you just have a special meal that you would like to prepare, that you would like to share with other people. But make sure that the host knows that whatever you bring is for everyone, not just for you, because it looks really silly if you take a covered dish and you go in the corner and you sit and eat it by yourself. It looks really rude. So, one of the things that I think you should bring is a host gift. And it doesn't have to be anything elaborate or expensive. Some people like to bring flowers, and that's great. Just know that if your host is allergic, then you need to bring something else. Also, with candles, your host could be allergic to fragrance. So, those kinds of gifts may or may not go over very well, unless, of course, you know that the host will enjoy it. Um, Another thing that you can bring is maybe a specialty dessert that you are known for, or if you know the host collects little things like little trinkets, or maybe the host loves turtles, or the host has for example, I have a Cavalier King Charles Spaniel. So I love to receive anything with a little Cavalier on it, whether it's a dish towel, or it's a little picture, or it might even be a magnet. It doesn't really matter. It's the thought that counts. It's not how much you spend on the gift. I also warn you about bringing alcohol, because if you bring a bottle of wine, that bottle of wine should be reserved for the host to drink at his or her leisure. That is not for you to say to the host, oh, here's a bottle of wine. Will you go ahead and open it? I had one woman in my class years ago. She said, I go to this one friend's house and she drinks cheap wine. So I like to bring my own wine, BYOB. Unless it states on the invitation BYOB, you probably should not bring your own alcohol unless you're planning to give it as a gift. And back to the flowers. If you do choose to bring a flower, I prefer a plant or an orchid because it's easier to take in, and it will probably last longer than flowers. But if you do insist on bringing flowers, you can bring them in a vase or vase, depending on where you're from. You just never want to bring them in the cellophane packaging, because once you give those flowers to the host, guess what is going to happen? The host has to now go into the kitchen, find a vase or a vase, and then it takes the host away from his or her guest. So, if you'd like to send flowers, you can do it either the day of, or the day after, or the day at the party, if you make sure that they're in a vase or a vase, depending on how fancy you are. So, okay, let's talk about thank you notes. That was something else I discussed. And no, they have not died and gone to heaven. I do believe in thank you notes. I think each and every one of us should have our own personalized thank you note. They're not expensive anymore. You can just go online and order something nice with your name engraved on it. And I always stress that the more formal the party, the more time and effort a host puts into the party, that's the more effort you should put into your thank you note. A call, phone call, or a text the next day is certainly acceptable. And I would recommend you do that at the very least. But let's say the host throws a party in your honor. That's pretty big. So I would say get out the thank you notes, set up a little writing nook in your home or your office. I love to buy pretty pens. This is a pen that I got in China. I don't know if you can see that. It's a cloisonne pen. And I love writing with this every day. It makes writing thank you notes that much more exciting. And so you want to sit down. And in fact, I go to the post office and I buy these beautiful decorative stamps. I love stamps. So depending on my mood, I might choose a more serious stamp or a fun stamp, just something that exudes your personality. And that makes it a lot more fun. And of course, if you have your own beautiful thank you notes combined with the pen and the stamp, it shows that you made an effort when you go to the post office and you actually mail the card. This is much more labor intensive than an email or a text or a DM. So it just also shows you have a little bit of class, and we could all use a little bit more of that now, can't we? So, one thing I want to mention is I have a free ebook as my gift to you. So, if you head over to my website, which is etiquetteexpert.com, I have an ebook titled Master Your Mingle Ability. And it's all about networking and putting your best foot forward when you go to dinner parties and so forth. It's chock full of information, and I would love for you to just get your copy. It's downloadable immediately. It will put you on my newsletter list, which I send out every week or every 2 weeks, and you can always unsubscribe to that at any time. But I hope you will check out Master Your Mingle Ability. It actually is a chapter that comes from my book. I just happen to have right here, since I'm doing a little commercial. This is my first book, Business Class. Would you believe some people don't even know that I wrote a book? But this is my very first book, Business Class, Etiquette Essentials for Success at Work. And this is my second book that came out several years later, Poised for Success, Mastering the Four Qualities that distinguish outstanding professionals. And you can get those on my website or Amazon or your favorite independent bookstore. It doesn't matter. So, as I said, head over to my website for my free ebook. So, also, if you have any comments, any questions, please leave them in the chat below, because I will be collecting these and I'll be online next Tuesday, same time, 2 p.m., answering your questions. And of course, if you love this series, click subscribe, and that way you'll get notifications every time I go live. Now, this next question is for Lynn, from Lynn, and she said, I was invited to a wedding recently, and at the reception, I was presented with a menu with prices. Is it proper to invite your friends to your wedding and then charge them for their meal? Well, Lynn, if you're tuning in, I hope that you, in fact, I hope you are, because I don't see a lot of brides and or grooms charging for the food. I do know that some couples like to have a cash bar. Some people are totally against those. Some people are for them. That is just completely up to the couple based on their budget. But I'm not seeing a whole lot of couples charge their guests for the meal. This is what I'll say about that. If I received a wedding invitation and I live in Florida and I'm flying to, let's say, Grand Rapids, Michigan, and I attend a friend's wedding, and I've paid for my ticket, I've paid for my hotel, I've paid for my new dress, I've paid for the gift, and I sit down at this wedding and I open up a menu and it has prices, and I'm also being charged for my meal. That would probably make me very upset, to say the least. And I'm just being nice here because, as an etiquette expert, I have to be nice most of the time. But believe me, I am human and I do have feelings and I do get upset. I do get mad. I do get angry. Um, and sometimes it's not pretty. But I would have to say that I'd be very upset about this. Now, as a bride or groom issuing the invitation, bride, groom, bride and groom, it doesn't matter, whoever is sending the invitation, you should make sure that your guests know what to expect. So, if it is a cash bar, you might want to include a little enclosure card, not necessarily on the formal invitation, but just something inserted in the invitation, just saying um, it's a cash bar, or the menu. I don't know exactly how I would word it, but maybe that's why the guests were so surprised, because the bride or the groom did not know how to word it when issuing the invitation. So I would just say, if you can't afford to have a meal, a sit down dinner or a buffet as a couple, I would say at least provide something for your guests. Maybe it's just hors d'oeuvres. Maybe it's um, just finger sandwiches. You might even opt for an afternoon tea versus a full blown lunch or dinner. Some couples are even going with brunches or breakfast to keep their costs down. But if you can't afford to feed your guests, you might want to think about other alternatives, like inviting less people or eloping. So that would come as a shocker to me if I wasn't expecting it. And the last question that I'll end with, and let's see, I'm going to see if we have any comments here in the chat. Again, if you're just joining us, I'm Jacqueline Whitmore. This is Ask the Etiquette Expert, and this is the party series where I'm talking about dinner parties, weddings, and so forth. If you have a social occasion that you're preparing for, or you have attended one in the past that you were surprised something happened, please let me know in the chat and I will get back to you with an answer. So, okay. The next question, this will be our last one of the day, unless anybody out there has anything else for me. Christine writes, Dear Jacqueline, is it proper for couples to order the same meal? Is it traditional for one side to defer to the other? And I know what Christine is talking about because I did an interview. I can't remember if it was for the todayshow.com or if it was fox.com, or it was one of those. Anyway, it might even been the Washington Post. But this question came up when it probably was the Washington Post, because someone saw the Bidens out in a restaurant and they ordered the same thing. And so the big question of the day is, should they have ordered the same meal? Oh my goodness. With all the other things going on in the world, people are now worried about what people are eating. So I thought this question was unusual, but I get a lot of unusual questions. You do when you're in my profession. And so I said it is not uncommon for couples to order the same thing. In fact, when you've been married a long time, you start to develop the same kinds of tastes. Have you noticed that couples who have been married a long, long time, they start to resemble one another? Have you noticed that? Same thing. People start to resemble their pets too. Sometimes after they've been with their pets a long time. But anyway, this question, I would say it is perfectly acceptable to order the same thing. In fact, if you're on a first date and your date orders something and you say, "Oh, that sounds delicious. Let's make that too." You can just make a joke out of it and say something like, "Oh, we have the same tastes. That's something else we have in common." Now, the other part of this question, is it traditional for one person to defer to the other? And my answer is, in the business arena, yes, because when you're entertaining for business, let's say that I'm the host and I invite you, my client, to come to lunch with me, I will always allow you to order first, and the guest gets best. So the guest orders first and the host orders last. So if there are 4 people seated at my table, I will seat my guest of honor to my right-hand side, and I will defer to that person first, and then we'll go around the table. And it doesn't matter if it's male or female, because in the business arena, it should be gender neutral. So we'll start with the guest of honor first and then go around the table. And then as the host, I order last. And you can also make subliminal suggestions to your guests by saying, "Would you like a glass of wine?" Now that's saying to your client that it's okay to order alcohol. But if the client says, "No, thank you," and it's just the client and myself, I will probably say, "No, thank you," unless I have a very close relationship with that client and the client knows I enjoy wine. But typically speaking, if your client doesn't drink and it's just the two of you, you probably shouldn't either, unless they say, "But you go ahead and enjoy a glass." So, these little things can get tricky, and that's why etiquette is so complicated for a lot of people, but it really isn't if you use your common sense, which we all know common sense isn't so common anymore. But if you just use your noggin and you uh, think, you stop and pause and you think. I've always been taught by the woman who taught me etiquette. She said, "Now think, Jackie, think." And I would think and I would think. And I was so afraid to say the wrong thing because I didn't want to displease her. But that's what I always say is use your best judgment, because etiquette is situational. What works for me might not work for you, and vice versa. So, I also have some books that I'm going to be recommending to you, not only my books, but other people's books, because I have a library full of wonderful etiquette books that I refer to from time to time. And I'll be sharing these with you, the fun ones, as well as the more practical ones and serious ones. And so, before I do that, again, I invite you to go to my website, etiquetteexpert.com, and download your free copy of my ebook, Master Your Mingle Ability. And it's up for grabs now. You can download it immediately. And I hope you enjoy it. Give me your feedback if you'd like. But just for fun, I want to conclude this program with some of my favorite books from my collection. And this one happens to be called Entertaining with Disney. I used to work for the Walt Disney World Dolphin Hotel in Orlando. And so I grew up in Florida as well. And I'm a Florida girl. And I remember when Walt Disney World opened, I believe it was 1971. And I went with my family the exact month that it opened. And anyway, I've been a fan ever since. But this is a fun book. It's full of party ideas, lots of great recipes, gorgeous photographs. I mean, um, every single page is themed, and it's a lot of fun. So that one is a fun book. And for those of you who are more serious about etiquette and you really want to perhaps even start an etiquette business, by the way, I do train the trainer programs if anyone's interested. And you can come to Mount Dora, Florida, where I live, and spend 3 days with me here in my home office and learn how to um, just about everything you need to know about etiquette and how to start your own business. This one is called The Art of the Table, and it's by Suzanne von Drachenfeld. This one is more difficult to get. I don't even know if Amazon has it anymore, but this talks about, oh, this woman is a historian, and she talks about everything having to do with setting the table. And um, here's one: European pottery and porcelain. I mean, she goes into depth into some of this. What is the service plate? The care of precious metals. So that kind of gives you an idea of the seriousness of this big book. Some etiquette books you can simply use as door stoppers. Some you will keep in your library, some you will pass along to your children and grandchildren. But I encourage you, if you're interested in the world of etiquette, start getting some of these fun books. They're always out there. So I think that is about it for today. And I am here every Tuesday at 2. I hope you will tune in and give me your feedback and send me your questions. I love to hear from you. And for those of you who are enjoying this beautiful weather, I hope it is as gorgeous as it is here in Florida. Again, I've got my spring clothes out of the closet now, and I'm really looking forward. And by the way, spring is, this is the start of a new season. That means we need to set our intentions for the rest of the year. This is the perfect time, the perfect week to just be more mindful and think about what we plan to accomplish between now and the end of the year, and set your intentions and enjoy this beautiful time of renewal and rebirth. And I look forward to seeing you next week. So thanks for joining me.